would you be willing to read this problem?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, you're given a string of letters and an array of numbers. The numbers indicate positions of letters that must be removed in order, starting from the beginning of the array. After each removal, the size of the string decreases. There is no empty space. Return the only letter left.
Great. Now, if you could just finish up by reading, we'll skip over the examples. Can you read the notes down below?
All right. So notes, the given string will never be empty. The length of the array is always one less than the length of the string. All numbers are valid. There can be duplicate letters and numbers.
Great. Thank you so much. So like last time, I'm going to give just about 30 seconds for everyone to reread the problem and look at the examples to sort of get a handle for what it's asking us here. Okay. We're gonna follow the same pattern here. I'm gonna flip over to Replit, just anywhere that I can type freely. We could do this inside of Codewars too. I just like having the nice white screen. So can anyone give me an example of a case we need to look at for this problem? This problem actually has very few cases. It is in some ways more straightforward than the previous problem. So, excuse me, let's think of our simplest case as string of one character and empty array. And we could have an example of the character B and an empty array. And we'll give one more example. We'll have Z and an empty array. Pretty simple. That the rules in this problem are so strict that the array will always have one less element than the string. So and the string will always have at least one element. So we don't need to think about, we could think about empty string, but we don't need to think about this because it says the string will never be empty. Then we have string of one, I'm sorry, not one character, of more than one character. And then here I might make almost like subcases, but we'll do string of one character, more than one character, removing from front, removing from end, and removing from middle. Let me illustrate what I'm thinking here. If I have A and B, and then I have an array that is 0, the answer I'm expecting here is B, because we have one more number than we do elements, and we're going to remove the character at whatever this index is. In this case, we're going to remove A. So I have string of more than one character, and I'm removing from the front. I'll give one more example of that. Let's try, I don't know, DEF. And I'm going to have 0, 0. And my expected response here then would be F. Okay. Then removing from the end, not so different, A and B. Here I'm going to have 1, because 1 in this case is the length, or I'm sorry, the last index. What if the string length is longer than the array length? We wouldn't want any undefined, other way around. So what if, John put a comment in the text, thank you. So if the string length is longer than the array, it will always be, right? So I think we're going to be handling that fine. And then the other example, what if the array length is greater than the string? So that's a good question. Let's go back to the notes to clarify that. The given string will never be empty. The length of the array is always one less than the length of the string. So we don't need to worry about a case where the array is equally as long or longer. It will always be one less. We also don't need to worry about a case where the array is more than one less, because it's always one less than the length of the string. So great thought as far as thinking about cases. And a lot of times the notes are exactly for that. Whether you get them from an interview or get them on the page like this, it's saying like, hey, you're probably thinking about some of these cases. Go ahead and exclude some cases because we're telling you they're not part of this problem. Totally fine. Okay.
Super quick. Does all numbers are valid mean no negative numbers or no decimal numbers?
It means neither one necessarily. What it means is you wouldn't have, I'm just going to make a separation here. You wouldn't, for example, have ABC and then your array be like 4, 5, 4, because the 4 doesn't exist. It's out of bounds. So it's saying I won't give you any of these numbers that are out of bounds from the string.
Thank you.
Good question. Okay, so we have A and B. We remove from the end B and we end up with A. And let's do one more example here. We'll have GRE. Why not? And we have, again, here it would be 2 because we're going to need to remove from the end and we're going to end up with GR. Great. Move on to our last case. We'll start with ABC and we're going to go with 1. Now here we're removing from the middle of the array. And so we would expect to get AC and KOP. And in fact, let's go with some more letters here. And we'll do removing 2 from the middle, 3 and 2. So 3 would be 0, 1, 2, 3, removing R. So my first one is going to be KOTEP. Then I would have to resolve 2. 2 in this case is T. So I'm going to end up with KOEP. Okay, I think we're pretty good here. We need to make sure that we're handling removing from the front, from the end, and from the middle. We need to make sure that we test this base case, that if we see that our string only has one character, we just go ahead and return it. And I think we can move on to our coding. Any questions about this so far? Okay. Now, again, I just want to stress, I know that this is not that difficult of a problem and that you might be inclined to just start coding because you can figure this out in your brain. I get it. I understand that. I'm not doubting your wonderful capacity to figure out these problems. What I'm encouraging you to do is to assume that much harder problems are coming and our brains are not that good about figuring things out intuitively past a certain point, and we get to that point real quick as humans. And so having a process like this where you note things down gives you a really nice roadmap to then figure out how to solve the problem. So here we go. Let's go ahead and start the problem by clicking on train, probably train for most of us, so train again. The tests are written a little bit differently here. So I'm going to just delete this block entirely. And I'm going to delete all but the first one here. And I am going to do exactly what I did before, which is copy my message. I'm going to replace what they have here, put in my message, string of 1 character and an empty array. Okay, it's almost like I just made myself my boss and now I just have to follow along with the instructions. So string of A, empty array, returns A. Let me minimize that. I can even make my life so easy, overly easy, and just return A. Now, this is what's called test-driven development, where we work with the minimum code we need to solve our tests, and we build up from there. So I'm going to go ahead now, copy this test, paste it here. How do I know what to put in this test? Well, I've already sketched out my arguments over here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and clean this up. I'm passing in Z, then I have an empty array, and of course I expect Z. Well, if I run this, obviously I'm going to fail because I'm returning A here. So let us implement a little bit of logic. If letters dot length is less than 2, return letters. Great. Now we're passing both of those cases. I'll go ahead and copy my it block, paste it down here. Just go ahead and copy this here. Put it in here. Okay, string of more than one character removing from the front. Well, I've already got my examples, so let me take those. I'm going to go ahead and paste those in here. And I'm removing A, so the example or the solution expected is B. I'm going to comment this test out while I run this one. Usually I like to just run my test, make sure that it's at least failing properly, meaning I don't have any typos or anything in my test. I don't want to get confused by that. So I like to run it first, see that, oh, yep, it's failing exactly where I expect it to. So let's go ahead and solve for that. All right, so now I'm going to have to remove at least one character. So let's say for let I equals 0, I is less than chords dot length I plus plus. So here we do have an example, more common, where we just want to iterate through an array of chords, and we're just going to use I plus plus. So let's make a couple notes. Iterate through chords in a for loop. And in here, we want to remove character at chords I. Remove character from letters at chords I. And then finally, we'll need to return letters. Now, this is assuming that we change letters in place. We probably are better off writing a new variable as we manipulate letters. But I'll go with this approach for now, and we'll see if we need to change and create a separate variable. All right, so I've set this up, but I'm not going to worry about removing coordinates from every part of letters. I'm only going to worry about right now removing coordinates from the front. Again, I want to point this out because the more you get into a big problem, the more you just feel like, oh my gosh, I got so many things to figure out, and now I'm lost. I don't figure out, I don't know where, I lost my place. I don't know where I am. Happens a lot. Very easy to happen. In a harder problem, happens even more. So we just look at our test. Okay, right now, I'm just trying to remove one character from the front. How do I do that? That would be a great time. If you are stuck, you would say, oh, I know exactly what to Google. JavaScript, remove character from front of string. Remove the first character from a string in JavaScript. What do you know? See how that kind of guides us in what we're looking for? Now, I happen to know how to do this, right? And you might too. I use this more as an example of if I don't know what to look for, well, I just look at my tests. My tests tell me what my cases are. My cases tell me what I have to do. Then I might click on this article. And great, now I see some nice things to teach me how to do it. String equals substring at 1. Okay, that'd be one way. We could come back to that. You can extend this to use variables. Use slice. String equals string.slice at 1. All right, I'm going to go with substring. Splice. Splice is a array method, and I believe not a string method, but slice, which is so similar, is an array and a string method. And, great. That is a good answer. Okay, so I'm going back here. Oops. So I will do letters equals letters dot substring 1. Sorry, because we want to exclude the first one. So I'm going to go ahead and test that now. Great, it's passing. So you'll note that we are by no means ready to submit this problem, right? Because we're not even actually taking into account I here. We've just hard coded 1. No problem. Let's go ahead and uncomment our next test in here. Oh, except for this is not the right actual input. We need DEF with 0, 0. Oops. Go ahead and paste those in. And our expected answer is F. We'll go ahead and test that. Okay, we're looking good. So I'm ready to move to my next set of cases now. Go back to my notes. String of more than one character removing from the end. Okay, great. So let me paste that in here. And I'm gonna just get rid of this. I'm gonna always build up one test at a time. And my arguments that I laid out here are AB with a 1. So I guess it's the same as this with a 1, which is going to leave us with just A. Like always, I will run my test. Oh, great. Everything is still passing except for my new test is failing. So if I didn't know what to do, I can just look at my message. Oh, I need to remove a character from the end of the string. And I go right back to Google and I Google it again. Oh, Kathy is correcting me that you can use splice on a string. Sorry about that, Kathy. Wonderful. That is great. Okay. So we will look at how we can do this. Now, if we want to, I'm not going to touch this code here for just a second. I might do letters equals letters dot substring 0 letters dot length minus 1. Now, I think that would solve for this case here. But of course, we're going to need to also keep solving for these cases here. So I'll have to be a little more dynamic with what I do here. Let's very naively say if chords I equals 0, and we want to do this, else, let's do this. Now we still haven't addressed taking anything from the middle of the array, but we should be okay here. Let's go ahead and give it a test and see. Hey, it looks good. Let's go back to our next test from this case. So I'm going to copy and paste this here. Here it is. And we expect GR. Go ahead and test that. Okay, looking good. I will copy this block as we move on to our last case. And just like always, I'm going to copy it. Okay, and I'm going to delete one of these, and I'm going to go back and get my arguments. ABC with an array of 1. Actually, the array is already there, and the string is almost there, and we're going to have A and C when we finish. Let's go ahead and run that. Didn't work, right? Our last one failed, kind of what we would expect. String of more than one character, removing from the middle. All right. So we could, again, maybe we might say kind of naively, we could say else if chords I is equal to letters dot length -1. This would be checking if we are actually removing from the end. Go ahead and check that. Yep, everything's still passing except for the last part here. So we might write in one more case for removing from the middle. How do we remove from the middle? We are going to have to use either slice, splice, or substring 2 times. Again, if you thought, oh, I don't know how to do this, no problem. You can just use exactly whatever you've sort of figured out as something that needs to happen as a jumping off point for Googling for it. But let's try letters equals letters dot substring from the beginning until the point that we want to exclude, plus letters dot substring, the point right after what we want to exclude, until the end. So this says, give me the first character and exclude the index. So if we look at A, B, and C, we say, give me A up until 1, but don't give me 1, exclude it from it. So that's A. And then give me the rest of it from the coordinate, which is 1, until, 1 plus 1 until the end. So starting at here until whatever comes after that. In that case, there's nothing else. So I think we should get what we want here. Let's try it. Nope, didn't work because I capitalized string here. Test that again. Okay, we're looking good. Going back to my examples. I already figured out my expected answer is this. Let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to run my test again. Okay, looks good. Now, at this point, we might say, well, we got some repetition in here, or we've got a bunch of code in here that we should maybe move into a helper function. I don't think that's a bad inclination if you have it all thought that. If you haven't, no big deal. We might spend some time refactoring here. We don't have time today, but we could. I like to make these comments, but then remove them because I just like seeing the code kind of alone on its own. The last thing I would do here, if we had more time, is I would write a couple tests where it removes from the front, the end, and the middle, all in one go. Because all we're doing is only from the middle, only from the end, only from the beginning. I think we could combine them now and make sure that we have a correct answer. I would certainly do that if I was, if this was something like for an interview. Given where we are at with time and whatnot, I think we're okay here. I'm going to go and click on attempt, and we passed. Wonderful. And I will then submit that.